Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World as we shift our focus here a little bit into the NFL offseason. And the first division that we're going to talk about in their offseason preview is the NFC East. I'm David Huppin. Right there is my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And when we're talking about the NFC East, you got to talk about one of the most disappointing divisions in all of football for last season. The Eagles underachieved, Dallas Cowboys underachieved, the Giants underachieved, and even the Washington Commanders, who had very low expectations going into this season, also underachieved. But we're going to get into all of their offseason storylines, all the things they're going to have to deal with in this next half hour of this episode. Thank you very much for checking us out here at Private Sports World. TJ, happy Tuesday, my friend. Glad to have you back on the show after you missed the yesterday show. It's because you had some sleeping.
Yeah, bro, that I did not hear that alarm at all. It was a long Monday.
Well, you're glad to have you back now, though. So
yeah, I just want to say I listened to yesterday's show when I was at work, and you could not be more wrong about Travis Kelce showing up his opponent. He does it all the time. He may not spin the ball in his opponent's face, but standing over them, flexing, screaming, and pointing, that's showing the opponent up. But anyway, yeah. Disappointing disappointing results if you're the Eagles and especially the Cowboys. For about a week after both teams lost their respective playoff games, the question became who had the more who was the bigger disappointment between the Cowboys and the Eagles. And
I might as well be share that prize because for neither of those, after the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, not even to get out of the wild card round, it's got to be the Eagles, in my opinion, actually.
at mine too, real talk, because like the people that are just saying that the people that are saying Dallas, I feel like you're just saying Dallas because it's the fun thing to do. You like
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like you like to kick Cowboys fans while they're down. No, the Eagles started a season 10-1.
I think they were 11-1 at one point.
Like they started 10. I know for a fact, like 10-1. They started 10-1 and finished
12-5.
like 11-7 or something like that. Like bro, like they lost 6 out of the last 7 games, including the wild card game. Like that's a monumental collapse. Like you went
Yeah.
from 10-1.
You went from being the number 1 seed in the NFC to getting a first round bye to having to go on the road in a playoff game and getting bounced by 30 points in a playoff game. Like you were never competitive in that game.
That's bad. Like you lost to some teams that it's like really you lost to the Cardinals. You lost to the for reference, people, the Bears ran the ball down the Arizona Cardinals' throats for 200 plus yards. The Eagles struggled. Like they had a lead and the Cardinals came back.
So swinging right into it, let's talk first about the first team in this division, like the weakest, quote-unquote weakest team in this division, the Washington Commanders. There's their draft capital right there. They have the second overall pick in this upcoming draft. The notable free agents, they got Curtis Samuel, Kendall Fuller, Antonio Gibson, who's been a solid running back for them, Joey Sly, who's been just an okay kicker, and Jacoby Brissett, who always seems to be the guy who comes in to save a lot of quarterbacks, to be the backup and win some games for the projected team. They have $12 million in cap space. They still don't have a head coach. After Ben Johnson announced today that he will not be leaving the Detroit Lions to take a head coaching job, so they're going to have to make a decision when it comes to the head coach.
That's huge.
GM Adam Peters, team president Jason Wright. Let's talk about the Commanders and their approach to free agency and the draft. I think the number one and their top 3 priorities is they need to find 1, a head coach, and 2, a franchise quarterback. I think Sam Howell was a nice story for a majority of the season, but he's clearly not the answer when it comes to their franchise quarterback position.
And we've seen it with the new ownership, right? With Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and that group, that ownership group. Let me just call it what it is, ownership group. They're aggressive. Like if they feel like you're not getting the job done, you're out of here. Like we saw it. They say we got all these first rounders on defense and it's not getting the job done. So we're going to trade some of these guys for draft capital, and they got a lot of it. Right? You see it. It's lined up, and in my opinion, they're not done. They still got guys that can get moved before the draft comes. I see a signing trade with Curtis Samuel somewhere. Like I don't know where, but I can see it. With Ben Johnson taking his name out the running, that 100% hurts their options because now it's who the hell do you go after?
Well, I predicted that I think Bill Belichick will be the head coach of this team. I still think he will be. You got Dan Quinn, who's a defensive mind. I think you want to bring in an offensive minded guy, but you're running out of really options at the head coach. Like you thought you were going to get Ben Johnson, so you kind of waited to not name. And now, like a lot of the hotshot free agents, a lot of these guys have been scooped up.
I would just if that's the case, I would just promote EB there. Like why not just like you got them already in the building? They know the offense, they know the signals, they know the checks and balances and all that good stuff. If Sam Howell isn't the guy, which me personally, I think the bigger issue is it's not just Sam Howell. They got more problems than just Sam Howell. we ain't gonna act like Sam Howell won the league leader in passing for like the first 2 months of the season. We're not gonna do that. Like they just for whatever reason they just weren't winning the games. Like some of them, right? Like you look at those two Eagles games, it's like damn, Sam Howell lit up the Eagles for 350, damn near 400 both times. These were competitive games. You don't have a lot of cap space. You can't do a lot in the free agent market.
$12 million is actually a ton of cap space in this NFL offseason. It's actually tied for third most cap space.
That's crazy. That is
because this also doesn't include like the players that they can they still have cap holds on a bunch of players right now, like Curtis Samuel, all those they have cap holds on those guys right now. Once they release those cap holds, they'll have even more cap space.
You're right. That's still crazy though. I would just me personally because they haven't made a decision on Ron Rivera yet, has he, or is he out?
Yeah, they fired him already or relieved him of his coaching duties, whatever.
So Eric Bieniemy's right there. This is your chance. Like I don't have the final numbers in front of me. Like I don't know where they were finished offensively, but Eric Bieniemy's right there. He's right there. All right, I would promote him. I think you're out on.
I do not think Eric Bieniemy will get this job. That's just my gut feeling about it.
To me, that's insane.
I think if they were going to make that decision with Eric Bieniemy, I think they would have done it by now. And let's also not pretend like they're the one quarterback away from being incredibly competitive. Like they traded away. Like they traded away, like they used to have this stalwart defense, at least in the line. They've traded away two of those edge positions, for draft capital. They don't have an offensive line that's any good at all. And outside of Scary Terry and Curtis Samuel at times this season, their weapons on the outside are just really not good.
That's what I'm saying. Like
this is a roster that just doesn't have talent on it. Like their defensive backs are not that good. Like they need a total roster overhaul, and it's going to take more than just one offseason to fix one offseason, one quarterback to fix all of the problems with the Washington Commanders. I mean, they have the second overall pick in this year's draft for a reason. They stink.
So that's what I'm saying. So like all the people saying Sam Howell not the guy. Like y'all do understand, like it's more to it than just the QB, and also again, this is a Washington team that organizationally they went through hell under Dan Snyder. This is that's the bigger picture. They have like Josh Harrison, Magic Johnson. They have a complete mess to clean up. No one's talking about that anymore because Dan Snyder's out the building. But that's he left behind a complete dumpster fire, and they have. Like they still put it out. Like what should top 3 priorities? Yeah, finding the head coach, determining if Sam Howell's the guy or not, and basically reshaping this defense. Because like you said, for me personally, I know for a fact I got maybe 3 guys that I know for a fact that they can ball. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Jamin Davis, the linebacker. I like him. He's a solid linebacker. How should they? Man, first off,
I mean they need to overhaul the entire defensive backfield. Like none of those guys are all are really world beaters or franchise changing players on the back end of this defense. And they have to replace both of their edge rushers, so it's going to be tough. Swinging in from Washington, let's talk about the New York Football Giants. Their draft capital is right there on the board as well. They got the 6th overall pick in this upcoming draft. They're going to have $6 million in cap space. They do have some big time free agents, and notably Saquon Barkley, Isaiah Simmons, who they traded for before the season last year, who didn't really pan out the way they kind of hoped. Brian Daboll still the head coach of this team. Let's talk about the Giants and their free agency and the draft and their top 3 priorities when it comes to this football team, who also underachieved this season. And you could make the argument that maybe 2 years ago when they made the playoffs and they won a playoff game, maybe they overachieved that one particular season. And so now they came back down to earth this year. Well, however you want to slice it, there was some hype around the New York Football Giants coming into the season, and they did not deliver on that hype. Izzy had to win like 11 games. We did their season preview that one. Like, people were excited about the Giants, and that didn't work out. Daniel Jones ended up on IR, tearing up his ACL. Who knows what they're going to do with him now, given the fact that he's getting paid like a top 25, top 15, 10 quarterback in the NFL right now.
So, definitely. Yeah, like, again, this was a playoff team last year. They got a playoff victory, right? And it was in convincing fashion, might I add. Right? They went into Minnesota, took their lunch, took their dinner. Grandma made them a plate to go home. And yeah, I think who did they end up losing to in the next round? But like
San Fran?
Was it them? Maybe. I don't probably. Like, but nonetheless, so like you said, expectations this season, you come out the gate, right? I think your first game of the season is a 40-0 ass whooping to the Dallas Cowboys on national TV. You got your ass kicked 40-0 off a season where you had all the expectations in the world. It was. I think this goes into like, and we saw it here in Chicago, right? Like new head coach, right? Offensive minded head coach.
They lost to Philadelphia 38-7.
Ass whoop in the next round. In the next round. All right. Anyway, like,
and they beat Minnesota 31-24. But it wasn't really all that close.
It wasn't that close. Like,
that final score is a little misleading because Minnesota did come back towards the end of the game.
Yeah, it wasn't that close. Yeah, we saw this in Chicago, right? New head coach, right? They have a season to remember. They go 12-4. They lost their playoff game, but offensively, we saw all the things that we wanted to see here in Chicago. Improvement at the quarterback position, run game was decent. One of the best defenses the league has ever seen. Fast forward to New York, new head coach. QB improvement, right? Running game healthy because for the most part, your top running back was healthy. Defense was taking the ball away, getting home, ending drives, getting off the field on third down. Fast forward to the next year, right? Chicago struggled, 8-8, ugly, harder schedule. Fast forward to New York. Next year, uglier, because now you're picking top 6, harder schedule. Daniel Jones gets hurt, but he wasn't playing all that well when he was healthy.
Man, you're just being nice. He was playing like trash before he got hurt. Like, he was playing absolutely like ass before he got hurt. And not to mention, this offensive line was playing like ass before everyone got hurt. They pulled Justin Pugh like literally out of off his couch to start games for the New York Giants. This offensive line needs to be reworked. They still need to work on these wide receiving core. And the defense as a whole, I'm a fan of, right? I like a lot of the pieces on their defense. But when you're on the football field, as much as this defense was this year, you're going to struggle no matter how good your defense is. You traded for Darren Waller. You basically don't use him at all. That makes any sense whatsoever. After that was kind of a big time move for you in the offseason. Their number one priority in the offseason is figure out, what are you going to do with Daniel Jones? Is he going to be back here on this team in any kind of fashion next year, or are you gonna waive him and walk away from that money and just eat it? Because those are your options right there. Second up priority, this offensive line is atrocious. It's abysmal. You need to rework this offense. I understand Evan Neal ended up on IR, but he wasn't all that good his second season anyways. Andrew Thomas was banged up for majority of this season as well. This offensive line needs to be completely rebuilt and reworked. And you're not doing that in one offseason probably either.
No, see, like, I think that's the thing that people have to understand. So every day at midnight, David, this is what I do. I go on Facebook and I checked my Facebook memories because I said some wild shit when I was younger, bro. And I just want to be like, yo, like this is what I said, and look how far I've come. I've grown.
Yeah.
But one of my memories was the introduction of John Lynch as the new 49ers GM. And my status was San Fran is starting completely over. New head coach, new GM, and John Lynch. That was 7 years ago. And in 7 years, they've gone to how many NFC championships?
I mean, four. I'm pretty sure it's four, and they've gone to the Super Bowl twice, lost twice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's four NFC championship games.
That's like, yo, that's 7 years. This is not a fly by night fix. This is not a one off. They didn't do that in one off season, right? That took time. That's what fans of other teams have to understand. The 49ers just didn't become the 49ers in one or two off seasons. It should take time. Rebuilds take time, right? And if you're the Giants, like you said, David, they have big questions to answer. Do you keep Daniel Jones at the price that he's at? Because you're not paying him $40 million to sit on the bench. I understand he got hurt. I get that. But you're not paying him $40 million to sit on the bench. Do you keep Saquon? I think the bigger one, because I've always felt like they should have paid Saquon versus paying Daniel Jones.
I totally agree with you on that.
And I got to stand on that hill. Do you keep Saquon? Do you bring back Saquon? Because Saquon,
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do here. I mean, if this is going to be a tear it all down to the bones and really rebuild this team, then I think you let Saquon Barkley walk.
Do you know the teams that are in the mix for this early for Saquon Barkley? Like just off rumor, do you know the teams I've seen?
I mean, he would be nice. There is not a team in the NFL that couldn't use the Saquon Barkley.
If he is a free agent, he has been linked to divisional rivals, both of them, both Dallas and Philly. And Chicago, I've seen his name here too in Chicago. I
wouldn't hate that at all. So, I think the Giants, the Daniel Jones domino has got to be the first one to fall, and I think it'll be real clear the direction the Giants are going to go if they take a quarterback at 6, which is a need which they probably should do anyways.
So you just say you eat that dead money. You eat that money as well.
Probably. I mean, I don't know what else you do. I mean, Daniel Jones, because the way money is set up in the NFL, his care. I don't think his contract is fully guaranteed. It might be next season, but no contract long-term ways is fully guaranteed. There's some money on there that you can get out of various ways. I'd cut him. I would absolutely release Daniel Jones. I'd eat that money for one season, and I'd just live with it, man. Like, you made a bad decision. Sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and be like, yeah, we made a bad call. Yeah, sometimes this is the way it goes.
I think a bigger storyline here is it came out basically after their season was pretty much over. There was some, what's the word I'm looking for? There was some tension. There we go. Tension between Daboll and his staff. And some of the staff members ain't like how Daboll talked to him or how Daboll conducted his business and all that other good stuff. That's 100% something I would keep an eye on if I'm like just a NFL fan in general. Like if one of the hottest offensive minds can't like basically.
Well, I mean, we saw like Brian Daboll can be a straight up hothead. You saw him on the sidelines calling out, showing up his players on occasion. Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. I think sometimes that kind of stuff rubs people the wrong way, without a doubt. So we'll see. Moving on from there, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Their draft capital is right there on the screen. They're notable free agents. I did not list Jason Kelsey on here because he retired, so he's not. He obviously is still a free agent, but he is not coming back to this team, so they're going to have to try to replace him. But big-time names here: Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, DeAndre Swift, Shaquille Leonard, Nicholas Morrow, Zach Cunningham. They're going to have $2 million in cap space. Nick Sirianni is the head coach. Howie Roseman is their GM. Don Smolsky is team president. What do the Eagles need to do, and what are their top 3 priorities heading into this offseason?
All right, top 3. I think priority number 1 just kind of got sped up, and replacing Jason Kelce. That's a Hall of Fame center that you got to replace. That's the linchpin to that unit, to that offensive line, right? Like he's the one. He's the guy. That's not an easy fix. That's not an easy replacement. You're at
he's the one that makes that Phillies brotherly shove like that. Like that play does not work without Jason Kelce. Like, is that play now no longer part of your repertoire because you don't have him? Because we've seen other teams try to run it without a Jason Kelce on their team, and they struggle with it. It doesn't work every time. But I think the bigger issue is the fact that this team just basically quit on this head coach. Right? You watch the effort they were giving with just tackling and playing defense. I think priority would be you have to draft players that are going to be character guys. Like you have to get guys that want to be there and want to play hard for this head coach, because tackling is a fundamental. Like you just wrap up. Like not tackling is unacceptable at this level.
This is also why I feel like certain players shouldn't talk. Like don't say nothing. Like James Bradbury was one of the Eagles players running his mouth, and James Bradbury had one of the worst seasons of his career. You became the guy that opposing quarterbacks picked on. Right? They target, like we saw it in Seattle, right? Drew Lock had an NFL moment on your behalf. That entire drive that turned out to be the game-winning drive, he picked on you, James Bradbury, and you did all this talking like, "Oh, I'm ready. I'm this. I'm that." Okay, you were ready, and you let Drew Lock have a moment on your head. That's tough to come back from, buddy.
Well, yeah, that secondary probably needs to be all overhauled anyways. I don't expect Kevin Bynard to be back. He was a free agent anyways. Probably won't be back on this team next season. Darius Slay's play has really slowed down over the last couple seasons, just with injuries and stuff. So the secondary needs some work. It needs some work there in the secondary. And they didn't generate as good a pass rush this season as they did in seasons before. Like Hassan Reddick had a fantastic season the year before when they went to the Super Bowl. Wasn't as effective this season. I know he had 11 sacks, but he just didn't feel as impactful as the season before.
Well, I said it when we did their offseason preview last year. Like, y'all saw their schedule and thought things were going to be somewhat easier. I'm like, no, bro. Like, they might lose 7 games. It took them to get into the playoffs to lose that 7th game, but nonetheless, they did it. And yeah, that like you just. Like that's what people don't understand. But like just because you went to the Super Bowl one year, that don't guarantee nothing.
And not to mention, when you go to the Super Bowl one year, I mean, you're going to get everybody's best shot every single week.
Every single time.
You're like, oh yeah, this is the team that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl last year. We're not going to let them just cakewalk through us. We're going to give them everything we got every single week. And I think the top priorities. I also think that Jalen Hurts regressed a little bit last season. I think he was dealing with some nagging injuries, especially down the stretch, that definitely impact his ability to throw the football a little bit.
Which no one wants to hear about. They don't want to hear that his knee was banged up. Like, bro, you got paid $250-some million. They don't care. He was out there playing, right? Not to mention, remember that fake ass concussion test that he did?
Yeah.
Like I'm more putting that on the team than I am on him, because at the end of the day, you got to save the player from himself. Like, if all, like,
I mean, of course, the player's going to want to get back on the football field and play, right? Like, no football field player wants to be on the bench on the sidelines.
And like the concussion questions that they ask, but like it's ridiculous. It's like, who doesn't know what day of the week it is? Like, who they playing? Like, what city?
I mean, if you really got a concussed, you might not be able to answer those questions. But yeah, I think getting Jalen Hurts. This offensive line regressed a little bit last season. Was one of the better units in the NFL. Didn't play.
It got to it got to a point where like the only thing they did well was the tush push. That's it.
Yeah, it's true.
Like AJ Brown voiced his frustrations, very very vocally. Might I add, like he in the fourth quarter fourth quarter. He in the locker room talking about like what needs to be said. Like there ain't nothing need to be said. Like giving the media the bare minimal, right? And then you said it like then to you get your ass kicked in the play. Like, bro, did you see Howie Roseman's face in that playoff game?
Yeah, he didn't look happy. He looked like somebody was thinking about making a coaching change. So,
bro, like,
but yeah, going into next season, Nick Sirianni is for sure going to be on the hot seat. A slow start for Philadelphia. He probably could be getting his walking papers. Howie Roseman is not a guy who plays around. To the final team in the NFC East, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. There is their draft capital right there on the screen. They got some big-time free agents on their roster as well. Tyron Smith, Tony Pollard, who they used the franchise tag on last year, Stephon Gilmore, Dante Fowler Jr., Jordan Lewis, Tyler Biadasz, I think is their starting center. Tron Curse, another guy. They have $10 million in cap space. Mike McCarthy, head coach, GM, and team president is, of course, Jerry Jones. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Their approach to free agency, approach to the draft, their top three priorities when we talk about this offseason.
Here we go. Okay. Okay. Well, obviously some some offseason questions have already been answered. One, Mike McCarthy is staying. He's not going anywhere, which me personally, I have no problem with. Like, again, the guy's like, he's been there, I don't know how long now, but he's won double-digit games every year he's been in Dallas.
So this is 3 years, I think 3 years. And yeah, they've won 12 games every year he's been
12
there.
games every year he's been here. So you want to fire 12 wins and a guaranteed playoff spot? Be my guest. I mean,
I think the thing is, like, if you're going to fire Mike McCarthy, you have to think of somebody who's going to immediately be an upgrade over Mike McCarthy, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, by the way, mind you. So, like, you have to find a guy who's going to be better than Mike McCarthy, and there just aren't that many head coaches walking around the world that are.
I mean, there's one.
There's one, but he's not going to put up with Jerry World and Jerry Jones and his Jerryisms, like
that part right there. Like, that's why it's like we also saw this is the same guy in Jerry Jones, where Jason Garrett went 8-8 3 years in a row. Went 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. The definitely for a 3-year stretch, the Dallas Cowboys were a walking example of mediocrity and 500. Jason didn't get fired after 3 seasons of 8-8. So why in the hell would Cowboy fans think Jerry Jones is going to fire Mike McCarthy after back-to-back seasons of 12 wins? Like, come on, like, do the math. Like the math that, like, come on, do the math. I was like the loss to the Green Bay Packers is one inexcusable because it was just a microcosm of all the games you lost this past season. If teams struck first against you, it pretty much threw you completely off your off your schedule, right? Like, because you're used to getting the ball first, going down, scoring first, and setting the tone that way. When you can't set the tone, you can't respond. That's not a good look. It's not a good look. How should they approach free agency? Well, one, like, you got this mythical caveat. Like, hey, we're the Dallas Cowboys. You wear that star on your helmet, you're gonna get talked about. You're gonna get all this, that, and the third. And
I mean, they're gonna talk about you on all the sports talk shows for like over an hour about just you.
Just right here, like you're gonna be in a spotlight for the whole season. Like the entire time you're here, you're in that spotlight. Like, yeah. That's how you do that. The draft, hell, same thing. Like they've had some nice pickups in the draft. Like I don't see them losing Tyler Biadasz. I don't see them moving off of him.
I think it'd be really foolish. He's an all-pro level center.
Tyron Smith, I'm expecting Tyron Smith to pull a Jason Kelce. I think Tyron Smith should just hang him up, man.
Maybe he's only 33. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
But the injuries, man, like
they are mounting up for him. I think he's missed at least one game in every season for the last 3 years. But I mean, he's still one of the best left tackles in the NFL when he is healthy, and he doesn't really have anything left to prove besides winning that Super Bowl. He's a first ballot. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, like it's. I don't know.
And they had Tyler Smith, who was supposed to be the guy to replace Tyron Smith, but he hasn't really worked at left tackle. He's been better at left guard. Their major needs are still defensive back and cornerback, and they still need to be able to stop the run more effectively. We've seen the Dallas Cowboy teams, like they were weak against the run. If you were able to run against the Dallas Cowboys, that's how you won football games. I think offensively they're fine. Like I don't think they need to do anything offensively.
Yeah, offensively I think their run game needs to be addressed.
Oh, sure, 100%. Yeah. Tony Pollard, you let Zeke Elliott walk. You thought Tony Pollard would be the guy. He just wasn't.
Personally, I just know. I think Tony Pollard could have been fine had Tony Pollard got the adequate amount of carries. I think they got away from that run game so fast in certain games. It's just like you never really.
He got 200. He got 252 carries this season. He had the 7th most carries in the NFL.
But I'm saying
it really didn't feel like it, but
I'm saying like there are certain there are certain games where it's like, yo, did Tony Pollard play? Like you get what I'm saying? Like there's just like that's more so what I'm getting at. I think they have to do a better job of like establishing the run and constantly feeding the run game. Like you got to keep teams honest. Like when it's obvious that you're coming out gunning that bitch, like, hey, you coming out shotgun with that, and it's just that back that way. We know what you're doing. we know what's gonna happen. Top three, man. It's top 3 priorities. Whoo.
I mean, shoring up. I mean, this offensive line. Figure out what you're gonna do with Tyron Smith. It's got to be the priority number one. And I think, shoring up this run defense and their running game, as you mentioned, yes, Tony Pollard had a lot of carries, but he just didn't feel like he was effective as he was the season before. Those are my 3 at least.
My 3 are my 3 are moves that get you over the hump. Like we see them make moves, right? Whether it's the draft or free agency, but they never really be like it's never a move that says like, hey, this could be the move that put Dallas over the top. Like the one time they did do it was Stephon Gilmore, right? You signed Stephon Gilmore, but you didn't count on losing Trevon Diggs.
Yeah, I mean that was huge.
All right, so like healthy, right? Healthy. That second, like at least at the corner spot, if everybody stays healthy, that's a different ball game because you got Trevon Diggs on one side, Gilmore at the other side, and the guy that turned into an All-Pro and Deron Bland in the nickel. All right, like the one time you made a move to be like, hey, this could be the move that put us over the top, you lose the top corner on your team. That fucking sucks.
It's tough.
That's tough.
So let us know, weigh in on what you think these 4 teams should do in the offseason. We're going to swing into the AFC East tomorrow with their offseason preview. Thank you very much for checking us out here at Prime Sports World. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. My name's David Huffman. Right there is my co-host, Mr. T.J. Hopkins. And TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll see you tomorrow, man. You have a good night, okay? Be safe.
See you, man.